Alright, hello, it's Jay again, and I thought to start another tutorial continuing the whole stock data and interpreting this data. I quickly wanted to show you a cool way that you can graph this data, make your own candlestick graph, maybe grab SMA 20, Bollinger Band, stuff like that, just so you can start playing with the stock data a little more than just grabbing the prices itself. So let's talk about graphing the actual data. So in order to graph it, we're actually going to need to, and you'll need to have these requirements. So hit install Plotly, but if you already have that requirement, you can say import, or again, from Plotly. I always get the import and from messed up, but from Plotly, we want to import graph objects, and we will import this as Go, Go for graph objects, just so that way it's a little simpler when we want to type it. The next thing we want to do is we're going to, from pandas, we're gonna import, actually, we'll just say import pandas, and we'll say SPD. So now that we have these two requirements at the top here, what we're gonna need to do for candle graphs is actually, if we open up a browser and we go ahead and look up TradingView, you'll see the example of a candle graph here. And with this, you'll notice that for each candle, we have our opening price, a high, a low, and the close. So again, if you remember from the last video, that when we looped through the different categories that were in each of our bars, we had, we can actually go ahead and reprint this just to remind ourselves what was each category. So here we'll print the categories, not callable category. And when we print category, we'll see that we have close. So this is just going to repeat for all the bars we have, but we have the open, the close, the high, and the low. So from the last video, we knew how to loop through these and get all the close lists. So why don't we come in here and say, okay, we're going to not only need the close, we're going to need an open list, we're going to need a high list of all the high prices, and a low list. Forgot the equal sign there. And once we have that, we can again use the same logic. We can say now if the category, or elif in this case, the category is equal to h, or we can do this in whatever order, but we know h matches to high, so we'll say high list dot append, and we can say bar category. Again, we can say elif if the category is L, we know that is in our low list, and we can say dot append the value that was contained in there, and finally we could say elif, or I guess we could say else, but elif if the category is equal to open, we're going to want the open list to append whatever value that was there. So now that we have all of those, there's actually one more set of data we're going to need. Now, if we're going to graph something, you notice on TradingView, our x-axis here is the dates, and our y-axis here is the price. Now, the price is already contained here, but we also need the times. Now, lucky for us, if we see we have t here, and that represents the timestamp. So if we say elif category is equal to t, we can say time lists is equal there, and we can append. So again, time list dot append, and then the value that was in there. So now we should, seeing all of this, we should technically have all our close prices, high prices, low prices, open, and the time. Now, one special thing with the time is that the time is actually given in a millisecond format, and the time zone is UTC/GMT from Polygon. Now, this can change with what API you're using, but in this case, since we're using polygon, we're going to go ahead and convert the polygon time frame timestamps they give you. Now, just to show you what I mean, I'm going to go ahead and quickly print the bars again. And if we print the bars here, you'll notice that our timestamps look like this. Now, looking at that, it doesn't look like a date. This is a date just encoded in milliseconds. So the way we can actually gather all of that is, let's just make a new array here called times, and let's just say for each time in our time list, so for each one of these values that we're going to be getting, we can go ahead and say times dot append. So in our new array, we're going to append the values using the pandas library that we imported. There is a function called timestamp. Inside timestamp, we can actually say we want to put in the time, so the value that we're getting, so the 16, 6, 7, 6, as it goes up or down, respectively. We want to give it the time. We also want to tell it the time zone that we're in, so we're in GMT, and we want to say what units we're given in. So some might give it in nanoseconds, some might give it in milliseconds, some might give it in seconds. In this case, we were given it in milliseconds. Now, to just to show you what the difference of these lists will be, even though I'm sure you can already kind of tell where this is going, let's just go ahead and print out the time list, and let's go ahead and print out the times array. Let's get rid of this print statement just so that way we're not crowding up our terminal here. And if we go ahead and print this, you'll notice that our timestamps that we're now getting here is 22:10:03 rather it being some, random, or not random, but some long float value. Now that we actually have the times, so we can use that as our x-axis, we have all the data we need to create candles. So using the Plotly library, what we can do is we can start making a figure. So we can say fig, our figure is going to be our graphing object, so go.figure, and from that we'll say fig, we'll add trace, and we're going to do the candlesticks, so go.candlesticks, or stick, and inside candlestick we're going to need what our x-axis is going to be, so that was the times that we got, the open price, which was our open list, the high price, which is our high list, we want the low price, which is our low list, we want the close price, which is our close list, and finally we can name this, and we can name this Apple Market Data. So now that we have this labeled as Apple Market Data, what we need to do to actually show this is we need to say fig.show. And once we have all of this in here, we should have all the necessary data to show a candlestick graph. So if we actually run this, it should pop up your browser, and there we go. So you can see we have price here, we have our dates here, and the cool thing about Plotly is that this is actually an interactive graph. So I can actually take this time frame here, and we can see that this candle has every candle we label has its information, what its high prices, low prices, and we can actually compare this. So let's look. November 11th, November 10th, we had the open 145, high 150, low 144, close 149. Similarly here, 141, 146, 39, 46. So let's go to trading view. Let's go ahead and get in November. Let's look, because we only grabbed data using historical data up to the 11th. If I mouse over here, you could see at the top of trading view up here that we get the 145 on the open, high 150, 144 in the low, 149 on the close. So everything looks like it's matching up. Perfect. Everything looks like it's matching up just fine. You can double click on this graph to zoom back out, and you can now basically use this code to graph any of the tickers. You just now can input whichever ticker, whichever date frame you want, or time frame you want, and it will graph it for you. So let's go ahead and experiment with this a little bit, and let's go ahead and just change one thing, and we're going to say NVDA for NVIDIA. And we're going to close this. We're just going to run this. I didn't change the name of the graph, but we can still see now that the graph changed. We're now not graphing, definitely not graphing Apple. You can see all the prices have changed, and we still get the same candlestick graph. Now, when it comes to changing aspects of the figure and how it may appear, there is a lot of good documentation on that. One small thing that you can do just to make it, let's say you wanted to have a dark mode. That's a feature that a lot of people have on their sites. So what we can do is underneath fig add trace, we can say fig update layout. And inside of here, we're going to say x-axis underscore range slider underscore visible is visible. And we're going to first set that to false. And that will get rid of the large bottom second slider that you saw. And another thing we can do is we can say template, and we can make this equal to plotly underscore dark. So now that we have this, if I go ahead and run this again, you'll see that we get the darker layout. We no longer have that extra slider on the bottom. We're still able to go in here, mouse over each one of these, double click. You have all the tools. We can download a plot as a PNG. You can save these dates. You can even make this live. So if you look back to the Flask tutorial we have, you can actually start updating a page route with multiple tickers and have multiple graphs or even a live graph being drawn. So I will leave you guys here just so you guys can start exploring more with how you guys can utilize the stock data, utilize different libraries of Python, and kind of play with it. If you, for example, if you wanted to get the SMA value real quick, what you can do is you can actually use a library called Talib. And the cool thing about Talib is that it actually has some really great predefined functions that will help you essentially get like Bollinger bands without having to manually calculate it out in multiple lines of code. Kind of has a pre-written as a function that runs in C, and we can see how to do this just by grabbing our, for example, we have our close list. So just with the close list, we can come in here and say upper, middle, and lower. So for our Bollinger bands, we can look at this for reference. So this is our upper Bollinger band. This will be our lower Bollinger band, and upper, middle, and lower will then say talib.bb bands. And all we need to pass is our close list, the time period. So how many days of interval we're looking at. Right here we'll type nb dev down. So this is like the standard deviation. And the MA type will say equal to 0. So just using this, now we're given upper, middle, lower. So if I print the upper here, just so you guys can see, we'll be getting a list of... Alright, so sorry, after reading this, it's just saying that it expected a numpy array. So if we wanted to use Talib, we would just have to say close list equals np, we need a numpy. So we can import, we'll say import numpy as np. And then we'll say np.array, and we'll pass close list. And now if we run this, we get all the values for our upper band. So looking at all the values for the upper band, now that you kind of have knowledge of fig, how can you get that to appear on the graph? So a very fun way of doing that is just experimenting. You can say fig dot add trace, and what type of object are we looking for at this point? Are we graphing candles? Are we graphing just a line? Well, just like trading view, we'll probably be graphing a line. So in order to graph a line with Plotly, we'll do the same fig trace, and instead of saying candlestick, go.candlestick, we'll be saying go.scatter. So go.scatter, and our x value will still be the times that we got. We'll have our y being the upper of our bands. We'll have our line the what color? Sure, we'll do blue, just like the the trading view chart that we have. And we'll name this the BB high band, or Bollinger Band upper. If we go ahead and play this now, you'll notice our Bollinger Band appears. Now, what is this gap, and why does it have this gap here? Well, remember how we are doing this on intervals of 20 days? Well, we need at least 20 days pass before we can actually start calculating on those intervals. So we need at least 20 days of data before we can gather this first point. Then we'll have the 21st day and the first day, 22nd day to the second day, so on, and it'll keep doing this windows of interval. Now we can also quickly, utilizing this, we can basically copy this, paste this, and instead we can say now lower and blue again, and we will say this BB lower. We can say that this can be light blue, just if we wanted to differentiate between the two. And here you have the lower band, and here you have the upper band. Again, all you would have to do to change this ticker is to change the value here. You can even have that as you can have an array of different tickers and loop through the tickers that you're going for. So now that we change this for Apple, we can close all these out, run it again, and there you go. So we have our Apple market data, which is all the candles, our upper Bollinger Band, and our lower Bollinger Band. So this is a cool way to just start graphing, recreating kind of what TradingView chart has here. And hopefully this was like helpful insight into how these APIs work and what you can actually do with them and how you can combine them in different Python libraries. So let me know if there's any questions in the comments, and like it, comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one.